Hello and welcome to Her Daily Rhythm podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Smyth. If you haven't met me, I'm a nutritionist, naturopath, meditation practitioner, and really passionate about all things women's health. And I'm on this journey with Femved. Femved is a wellness platform, and they're dedicated supporting and highlighting women's health from menstruation to menopause. They have an online platform that's really dedicated to democratizing women's health with an array of experts, doctors, Ayurvedic practitioners. So it's really exciting. This episode, we're going into something that I'm deeply passionate about. We are deeply passionate about. It's a little bit different, but it's all about Femtech. And what is Femtech? Femtech is technology to support women's health. You know that I speak a lot about and very passionate about that the woman's body wasn't studied or recognized in science until the 1990s. So that was really not that long ago, over 30 years ago. So I think we really need to bring attention to this incredible technology community support because it really doesn't get a lot of the funding requirements. And in this episode, I'm going to be speaking with an incredible woman Lindsay Davis. She is the founder of Femtech Association Asia. She's incredibly inspiring. She's only moved into Femtech over the last 3 years. Prior to that, she was in luxury goods and among many things. She is the founder of Femtech Association Asia, the region's first and largest specialist advisory industry network for founders, professionals, and investors with the core focus on improving women's health through technology solutions. And so the organization already in only just a couple of years currently represents 80 companies across the 9 countries in Asia. So Lindsay is a force. I'm deeply inspired by her, and you should be too. The way that she pioneers the legacy to really change and make women's health knowledgeable, accessible, and how we can really all get involved. It doesn't matter where you are, but we all need to come together in every single region across the globe to make health solutions for women acknowledgeable and accessible. So I'm really excited for you to hear this episode. There's just one slight caveat that I'm so sorry. There was a bit of a technical issue, so there is a little bit of sound glitching that I haven't been able to amend. So please bear with me. But you can email, find Lindsay on LinkedIn to ask her any questions, and she will be happy to dive in. And hopefully I can interview and speak with her again, because we also, Femved and myself, we're raising funds so this technology can go out, because at the moment I edit everything. So thank you so much for your patience, and please let me know how you find this conversation useful, what you're going to do to participate, and if you want to certainly hear more. Okay, as always, thank you and enjoy the show. Wow. Oh my gosh, Lindsay, that is an accolade, and you certainly are a pioneer in leading the way in business and femtech for sure. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It feels like there's always more to do, no matter how much we achieve or awards or accolades or recognition for these things. What it comes down to is the impact and the numbers we can put against it and actually helping people. So that's why I'm really enjoying working in femtech now and women's health. And the gap, I think we all know, is pretty obvious from our personal experiences as well as from the numbers globally. It's a really interesting time to be in the industry. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about it with you today, Natalie. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of themes that you mentioned there, but it's clear that you've moved from luxury goods, which I feel is an industry that is perhaps abstractive of women's health and women's bodies, to then moving across the globe from the UK, where you were, now to Asia. So I wonder if you could link us through that step and what happened in your journey there.
Thank you so much for asking. So obviously, originally from the US, I say obviously based on my Wisconsin accent. After living there, working there for many years, I moved to London and became a British citizen in 2014. So I've always had a background in communications, agency work, community building, kind of transpired that moved from the agency world to the client side, which is a goal for many of us. So moved to the client side in the luxury services and goods space, worked there for a number of years. And then after running a global franchise division for a company, doing a lot of travel, meeting a lot of amazing people, I decided that it was time to move to yet another continent. So my third continent to live on, which is Asia. And so moved to Singapore here in Southeast Asia in January of 2020. Now, I left my job of many years in London. Oh, the move to Singapore will be easy. There's so much work there. There's a lot of growth and a lot of city. Well, based on the timing I told you, it was 2 months before we went into lockdown. So during that period, I pivoted my career pretty significantly and actually saw that there was a gap based on the discussions I'd been having with a really generous and kind network here in Asia. Just found that there was no one really leading or building the community and ecosystem for women's health and femtech. I've always had an interest in the tech space. I've always been an advocate for women's rights and human rights as a concern in fitness, health, well-being, from mental to physical to spiritual, all of it. And so femtech really came quite naturally. So seeing that there was a gap and nowhere to kind of align myself or get involved. So with that, we now have over 75 companies. We're actually over 80 now. We just launched actually our 10th country, which is Bhutan, on the 11th of November of 2024, which is really exciting. So just a couple weeks ago. And we continue to grow and bring on more members, clients, and ecosystem partners into what we're building. So it's really exciting to see women's health coming to the forefront of a lot of businesses. And as you say, we even see the luxury space partaking in ensuring that the women employees they have are taken care of and that the communities that they serve or the customers have a kind of foundation of care, inclusivity, equality, equity. Those things are all very much in play now in almost every industry, which is exciting to see.
And I think that's interesting too, because what I know a lot of people are afraid of tech, because, we speak about tech, it's integrated into our lives and it's rapidly become integrated in our lives, but still a lot of people are fearful of it. A lot of people aren't utilizing it in corporations, in their daily lives. I know it's very different in Asia. Could we take a step back for people that aren't familiar with femtech to see how it is really bridging that gap? It's not something to be fearful of. It is really bridging that gap with disparities and inequalities.
It's such a great point. We should start at the beginning, right? The term femtech is female technology, looking at women's health and how technology, whether that be a product, service, software, medical diagnostics, how all different types of technology or even CPG products support women's health. So ultimately, what we're looking at is an industry. However, really actually creating it into an industry. The term femtech was only coined in 2016 by a wonderful Ida Tin, who started the menstrual care app Blue. Wonderful leader in the space and really a great representative for health equality and gender health equity. That's what we're doing here in Asia through Femtech Association Asia, on vision of available and accessible healthcare for all women in Asia. And when I talk, so really we're looking kind of geography as well as complete lifespan or life cycle of the woman from, early years of menstruation all the way through to postmenopausal years. So how do we ensure that technology is supporting women throughout their healthcare journey? We believe that technology is a huge part of the solution for scale, for data and learning more and empowerment of individuals, as well as really just, being part of a movement in healthcare. So obviously we've seen health tech launch and health tech being a more term, but feminine have been left behind, under-researched, underserved, and underfunded. So what we're trying to do is really create femtech as an industry that can grow into that broader health tech field, but starting with a real focus on women.
And you rightly mentioned that it has been so underfunded and it's only really been researched in recent years. So how can it bridge that gap? Because technology is quite expensive, but there is a whole ecosystem involved, a whole community involved. And I think that's so exciting, particularly for women's health, where it hasn't involved equal parts of the collective. How is that helping the innovation of it?
Maybe we could start with one part of your question. The first part being, I think what excites me about femtech is we see obviously women, and when I say women, please, women and those with women's healthcare needs or those as women who have those needs in healthcare. So please know that is an inclusive term, but women for the sake of a more rapid conversation or rapid reference. So comes to women's health, I think it's really exciting to think of the fact that here in Asia, we're 83% women as founders. Now, that's very exciting. Think about who is our consumer. It's those with women's healthcare needs. So it's women serving women, true understanding for what women are feeling and going through, whether it be some endometriosis or PCOS, whether it's something like or menopause, health, or fertility challenges. I think a woman's journey, that biological, hormonal journey, stress that our bodies are under, and the stress of our experience, even outside of physical health, but into mental health and into caregiving. I think this is very specific to women. That women creating these solutions as entrepreneurs is really exciting because it's a true understanding of the consumer. So I think the biggest challenge, but that is going to be the biggest, reward in the end, or like you said, the most important part, is that we are working to obviously create commercial solutions that will end up making money. Ultimately, the world runs by revenue. I'd love to say it's all the barter system and kind gestures, but it's not. So ultimately, we're creating businesses. But the good thing is these businesses have impact and they have purpose. And really that is looking at how do we empower more women with more knowledge, more awareness, more access to understanding about their health, more access to clinicians or specialists who can support their health, and actually be able to understand better what they're going through. I think everyone's experience with health is very unique, especially, as I mentioned, as women, but to have an industry that's focused on taking those unique moments and saying, yes, it's a unique part of you, but there are solutions, or there are points of access where you can learn more or get help or create a treatment plan and an integrated treatment plan. So it can be between clinician, between a femtech startup, between content and trusted sources of knowledge. And I think that's a really neat part of femtech. The first part of, I guess, your question is, why is it important? It's because women are under-researched, underserved, and unwanted, and femtech is addressing these exact concerns, being underserved. The second part of your question around funding is, you're absolutely correct, that really, we see all different, but one to reference would be about 1% total funding in health, general health tech, goes to femtech. And when we look at what's in femtech, the majority goes towards oncology. Women's breast cancer in particular is a leading funded disease. And so the question is, how are we putting funds towards just these massive market gaps, these untapped markets of women who need care, who need, information and care for their health. So maybe that might be a couple of perspectives and a lot to digest, I know.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. A lot there. I think I want to go back to what you originally mentioned, which is remarkable to me, that in Asia, you mentioned that 83% of women are founders, which I have not seen that stat really anywhere globally. And I think that really goes...
Femtech, not overall.
Sorry, for Femtech. Yep. Sorry. You said, that's right. For Femtech, 83% founders for Femtech. Because I don't see that stat in the US or the UK or anywhere, or even the progressiveness or the business funding for it. So why is there more of a collective hub, or why is there a higher percentage in Asia? Is it because of the ecosystem that your organization has created?
Well, I'm not sure it's a higher percentage. I don't have a like-for-like comparison with other regions. I can share that Asia is the third largest region for femtech in the world. So we represent about 14% of femtech businesses in our region. When I say in our region, it's including China, including India, Southeast Asia, Japan, Hong Kong, etc. Really half the world's population is here in Asia. So I think when we look at comparison, it's still hard to do. The US is such a leader in this space, and we learned so much from the market. Western Europe, number 2, we learned so much from. I think the reason here is we are just in early stage of the industry. Like I mentioned, the term was coined in 2016, really haven't seen the pieces of an industry of all of us until really we launched in October of 2021. There were absolutely businesses before we launched, absolutely, and there's India. And also there's a Femman. So, we kind of try to not compete and make sure that there's the support in the different countries that's needed. So we do see most of our growth in Southeast Asia, most of our members in Southeast Asia, but certainly a large contingent in Hong Kong, plenty joining and plenty in South Korea as well, which is really exciting. And then, of course, we just launched in Bhutan. Curious to see what kind of businesses are going to pop up there in the next years.
Yeah, Bhutan, that would be so interesting given aren't they in the top percentile of the happiest countries to live in too?
Yep.
So I think that's an interesting perspective. And then you mentioned with Femtech Association, you've got over 74 partners. What type of partners does that look like, or with yourselves? What type of organizations does that look like?
So thank you for that question. So we launched with obviously 0 startups in our network, but quickly expanded because, again, there was no other industry body kind of representing, this exciting and growing industry and the challenges that the founders face. It's really great to have a network where people can work together, meet new people, try to get, to be a part of more events and programs. So we operate with 5 key pillars. We have our advisory branch, and that's really helping businesses understand how to better integrate women's health to their company. That can be through the department, through DE&I, a lot of different ways we can. When we look at our second pillar, it's fellowship and looking at research. So a lot of our partners help us with the research. A great example would be that in June, we released a report, the Femtech Landscape in Southeast Asia and Consumer Perspectives, partnership with Milu here in Singapore. They were a partner, did a large piece of pro bono work for us because they are so passionate about women's health research increasing. So we now have a really wonderful benchmark to learn from because of that. Secondly, we look at programming and events. So this has a number of partners. So our very first ever partner that we ever had was My Republic, the second largest telecommunications company in Singapore, but always Indonesia and more. Really great company. And we worked with them on this programming during the period during the COVID period. Our most recent partners, that was a very partner, would be Cigna. Now, our lead sponsor, Cigna Healthcare Singapore, was our leader for Femtech Connect Asia. So this was the first grown feminist health conference here in Asia, which was really, really exciting. So we had people joining us here in Singapore from 11 countries around the world, government officials, startups, investors. We actually had Tatler as a partner, which was just so generous and so kind of them to cover. We also had HSBC as a wonderful, which is a sponsor, and Amazon Web Services provided us with a venue. So more and more partners are coming to the forefront when it comes to programming and how they create opportunities for their women and allies at work to learn more about women's health. So programming has been a big part of what we've done along with the thought leadership and advisory. We do a lot of work in amplification, such as having podcasts with the wonderful Natalie Smyth here, as well as talking with, of course, publications, media outlets, and really just trying to ensure that what's being shared is accurate to the industry standards here in Asia. And then finally, we look at community building. So community building is talking with everyone from, scientists, clinicians, founders, investors, all the way through to enthusiasts, people really passionate about to help more women gain available, accessible, and affordable healthcare. So we really have a range of who our partners and who our members are, but what's really everyone really has this drive to make change, and with solutions and technology, we really believe is the foundation of that.
It sounds like a wonderful ecosystem, and as you say, it's almost like the change that we're seeing from Western medicine, which is a pill for an ill, versus functional medicine, where we see how every single organ, every system is interconnected and interrelated. There's nothing that we can't do or create a solution for when we work together and create these partnerships, which is almost like a new landscape for business, if you will. It's very inspiring. And I suppose from maybe an innovation perspective, what are you seeing as the most exciting things that you're all working on in Femtech Asia?
There's a lot. There's definitely a lot going on over here. I feel like I can never top of everything. It's like a constant state of, what do they call it? Like spinning the plates, everything above ground. What I am excited about, I think first and foremost, is again that we launched in Bhutan. And so I think connectivity to a new country and helping people learn and engage and into a new industry, and I'm always excited. We have a lot to learn. Leaders, the Philippines, which is mental women on their pregnancy journey, the Valley of Inclusive company with textiles. We look at, Unprude starting to launch more into the sexual wellness space. We have a lot of really amazing partners. And the reason I bring up the Philippines in particular is they are a very tight-knit community of founders, and how they've made the most progress are through these partnerships. So I'm really excited to see that same collaboration and connectivity in each country, because we're seeing just rapid growth in the market. So that really excites me. What excites me also is, of course, we're looking for sponsors and partners for our second annual Femtech Asia conference. So, any businesses or individuals who are looking to take part in the space, we welcome to get in touch with us as we look to build another year of research, sharing, and connectivity and collaboration for our ecosystem here on this side of the world. And of course, I think the excited person is starting corporate part, global MNCs, pharma, these big companies really starting to see health as something that they need to have time and money and energy into. We'll see how that partnership works with us. But again, as I mentioned, HSBC has been a fabulous partner for us. Recently, we partnered with BlackRock, who have been incredibly supportive. We see more and more outreach from a variety of companies. What really excites me is that more and more businesses are understanding that fundamentally they need to take care of their employees, and Femtech and women is a great way to start that journey to take care of women in the business, whether on their fertility journey or senior leadership, more experienced workers who are maybe going through their menopause journey. I think that excites me as well, as starting to see the broader ecosystem engagement. I'm just excited about everything, Natalie. Maybe it's excited about.
Yeah, gosh, you're really making me excited. It's so exciting. And then I want to take it back to maybe a personal question, if I may, because you've come from the US, you lived in the UK, so very, Western education and policies and so forth, to then move to Asia, Singapore. I know it's a different landscape, but then integrate and bring on all of these countries that have different religious, political values and ways of doing business. How did you make that possible? It almost seems impossible for someone over here. So I think that's very inspiring. And I wonder how you did that and what barriers you've experienced from that relationship building.
That is a great question, and a complex question, of course, from a personal side and from a professional side. Obviously, moving countries, there's always a big reset. And I think one thing I found with the network I've had is I've met amazing people. And every time I move, I just think, well, here's a new community to build. Typically, that's been in an industry I've been in before, like the luxury space or the ad agency space. One thing that's really changed in this move is actually looking across a whole region. What's changed there is saying that they're seeing that there really is lack of representation for women in health, or not with women's health. And so I think that automatically unifies so many of us who care about the space, who care about women's health, who want to see change and more research on women's health. So from the personal perspective, of course, it's always difficult to move from one geography to another, and different languages and different cultures and different challenges. But I think one thing that's been positive on the journey and that I found is just a different way of building. And luckily, my community has kind of come with me and my network in Asia. We introduced that's UK based, but they have a branch out in Singapore. So I find that we're making progress. But yeah, I think there are. I wish 9 languages. I don't speak it. I only speak a couple. So it'd be nice to be able to speak more languages, because firsthand is always better. I'm taking my Bahasa Indonesian class. Turns out I'm not as good at languages as I thought, but I'm trying. So yeah, those are just the things that I've struggled with, found really rewarding, with women's health as kind of a core connector for so many of us.
It's very simple, isn't it? If we just have that empathy towards each other and problem solve and share ideas, then we can create so much, can't we? And we really forget that human first interaction. And then now we have this technology, which is really solving all of our problems with, our minds and together. It's really, really wonderful.
That's a beautiful way to how you just said that, Natalie. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. And then I guess going back to what you mentioned before about, corporates and getting corporate buy-in too, because I think that's really that piece where it will become common language between everybody, not just women, but it also helps men, doesn't it? So what are you noticing with how can, some our listeners, for example, they work for a corporate and they're interested in this from any perspective, whether it's advertising, women's health, or just wanting to get involved. What can the normal person do right now? Maybe a woman in her late 20s, early 30s. What can we do?
What a thoughtful question. Thank you very much for that. I love what you just said there. So I only got into the space in October of 2021. According to someone who's been in this for 3 years, I've learned everything as I've gone, just pushing through, persevering, reading, talking with people, gaining exposure through definitely the knowledge other people have that I don't. I mean, I am just constantly learning from other people. So the first thing is, we need to look at our own health, because we can, it's that whole put on your own face mask and then help other people with their mask. The thing is, I think women need to make sure that they understand their own health, that they've had all the tests they need. Perhaps it's a mammogram, perhaps smear, but making sure we are taking care of our health first, and even if it's just an annual women's health exam, always start with the self, that we have an understanding of our health. It's very, when it comes to work company or how to bring a company, the easiest way is review your policies. What are they offering you as an individual now for your fertility journey, for your days off, for trainings, just your insurance? Women's very much more expensive than men's health. So how are they supporting women on their health journey? If you see that they have some great benefits, set a meeting and chat with them and say, I love these benefits. How can we continue to build an ERG, an employee resource group, in our business to talk more about women's health, to support more policy change and more benefits for women? That's one way people can get involved, even in their own company. Another thing they can look at is actually on a broader scale, saying, look, I would love to learn more about health. HR team, DE&I team, marketing team, my manager, whomever I speak with, I would love to understand more about my health. Would you, company, be open to programming, to helping me create knowledge with experts that we bring in with Femtech Association Asia? I'm certainly not the expert in everything, but I bring in menopause experts, fertility experts, menstruation experts, all of these different types, to actually create a better understanding in the workplace of from 1.5 hour to workshops that help women and allies better understand women's health. And also the Femtech and super excited investors to hear about is what's happening in the industry in Southeast Asia. And then broader scale, obviously, we of course welcome everyone to join us. We encourage everyone to reach out to Femtech Association Asia on info@femtechassociation.com, or on our LinkedIn page, or on our Instagram, Femtech Asia, and just simply health. We have created a very safe, using femtechnology as a base to these ongoing relationship trainings for women to access. Anyone can reach out as well.
Wow, it's really inspiring. And I love your curiosity to innovate, problem solves. We can all be advocacy for ourselves, for our partners, and creating that investment. I just want to touch on, a lot of people speak about in Femtech that there's lack of funding, and that's kind of the limitation as to why they don't get involved. But hearing you speak, it's really about building that community and problem solving and building partnerships and awareness and information and knowledge. So it sounds like that you've kind of found a way around that. I wonder if you could speak on that piece about lack of funding.
Lack of funding is always going to be a challenge. And there's a million reasons that there are these challenges. There are challenges for getting even in women's health, investing in women, and the percentage of money that goes to women as starters. Let's eliminate the level of challenge, which is walking in the room and talking about breast pumps or sustainable menstrual care or hormonal health. This is kind of like a whole nother level when oftentimes many investors, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but many investors, especially at VCs, who are decision makers here in Southeast Asia are male. I think it's only 24% of VCs in Southeast Asia have a woman as a decision maker. So you imagine the room you're entering and all of the challenges that are already there. So first of all, I think funding can be a challenge. Now, we can talk about VCs. However, what I'd like to do is actually celebrate where we are seeing great progress in investment. And that is through angel investors. The investment space, bit by bit, we are seeing others starting to extend. But I will say angel investing and independent investors really is where we're seeing the most Femtech funding support as of right now in Southeast Asia. That doesn't mean it's not going to change and it's not going to pivot. And when we see leaders like Maven Clinic or unicorns like Maven Clinic, or we saw Flow Health in Western Europe recently received a large sum of money funding, I think that we just need a few cases like that here in Asia. And I think it'll really pivot the whole perspective of funding and the funding journey.
I think that's really exciting. I know we previously touched on this, but I want to mention it for audiences that Flow Health received their funding and they are owned by men. And I know there was a lot of discussions that, two men running a female tech company, and of course they got funding. But I think, like you said, it just sets the bar for us. It doesn't matter if they're men, they are advocating for something that is really important for us. And it just makes us more well-known and public in the media. But I guess just to highlight one question for you on there that I do get asked a lot is data security with apps like Clue and Flow Health. Do you have much information or knowledge on that? I know it's not your specialty, but for questions relating to data in Femtech.
So I think you touched on it earlier. With all of the countries, many have very different data requirements and security requirements. We have some that aren't really much. There aren't really many data requirements at all. Now here in Singapore, strict data, very strict data protection, data security, and data confidentiality. I think where now is we're in the gray age. I'm saying it a joke, but having that we have data about women's health becomes a concern to be breached. It's maybe one of those things to think about, but that is not a primary concern in Asia right now. Where we are right now is at that growth stage. How do we move from bootstrapped, angel invested, Series A, pre-Series A? How do we move that? And seed funded, how do we move that into further funding? So right now when we see growth, I think we're definitely looking at consumer growth, and a lot of that is going to come scale through B2B. And that's really where data, security, privacy, and how things are set up, that's where I think we'll see the pivot, is with that scale from a more consumer focused and smaller numbers and startups. These companies start scaling and working with these big B2B, data protection is going to be critical because that is going to be demanded by all large companies and even small companies. I think we'll see that pivot quite quickly and that come to the forefront.
It will be a natural progression, it seems.
Yes, for sure. We're just a smaller green industry compared to the US and Western Europe, but we'll get there. I have all the confidence in the world. We'll be huge.
Well, in 3 years, I mean, I'm just absolutely gobsmacked, for a lack of a better term. So it's really inspirational, Lindsay. And so with Femtech Association Asia, what is your partnerships with the other global enterprises, or how does that feed in, or maybe not so much because it's very specific, your data, what you're working with, your partnerships. I know it's very different to other regions and other countries, but how can we all dovetail together? For example, our audience is in London and the US, and then we have India, which is very, very, very different way they approach things culturally. So I guess, yeah, what can we do? What can I do right now in the UK to support you, to support the larger ecosystem at large? I know we've touched on it probably a lot, but
That's a really good question. So, as the world of Femtech, I think Femtech Australia just launched, Femtech Argentina, Femtech Mexico by Mayra Hurtado, who also runs Hormoni, which is between the US, the UK, Singapore, Mexico. She's amazing, and a wonderful partner of Femtech Association Asia. So, we're seeing more and more countries launching these Femtech networks. And it's really positive because we're able to work together. It's a super collaborative industry because we're all having to work so hard and hustle so hard. So there's high levels of empathy, high levels of understanding of the challenges, and levels of wanting to lift up other countries and other people in the industry because we don't have competition yet. Yes, of course, there's some competition, but there are so many, and yet there's so much blue ocean still. There's so much opportunity to enter this industry, specifically here in Asia. I can talk about you just won't have the same level of competition, not as in quality, but number. There aren't the same numbers of companies. It's a really interesting time to be in Femtech for sure and to enter the market. You're talking about how other markets can get in. I would say look in your backyard first. Which communities are there in your country? If you don't have one specifically in your country, or if you're interested in another market, what's happening there, yeah, I think you can just Google, the different Femtech players around the world. They're all connected and very kind and will certainly help you connect with the right network for you, where you are, what you're interested in.
It's seizing the moment, huh? I think the moment is now. So ride the wave, as you say, because anything that you're interested and passionate about, we can create together.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I loved I love that the whole what we're discussing today is around health and well-being and inclusivity. And I love all of these topics so much. The one thing I always laugh when people say, and how do you do all of this? It's so much. I always say, well, I just avoid my own health so I can take care of their own health first. So the best thing we can do is take care first. So I really love your message. It starts with well-being, getting a better understanding of how we're taking care of us, and then in turn, how we can make impact in the world. And this happens to, there are a million ways to make impact, support other people, support underfunded groups. So a lot of impact and a lot of opportunity for those, again, put on your own airplane mask first, and then of course, take care of others. There's so much amazing potential, especially with the women I've met around the world and how much they have to offer, how hard they work, and how much collaborative effort I've experienced. So I feel very grateful to be in this industry with such amazing people such as yourself, really trying to raise the profile of women's health. So I guess a big thank you to you, Natalie. So thank you for having me today, but moreover, thank you for your larger mission of raising that awareness.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm so grateful for your contribution and your passion. It's truly inspiring. I know we've covered a lot. Do you have any final takeaways, anything that I might have missed that you think is important for the audience to receive?
There's always so much more to talk about, but a wonderful talk to you. I'm happy to talk in Asia, women's health in Asia, and really get in touch with anyone who's interested. Anyone's welcome to reach out. I love hearing what other people are curious about in the space. It's always a good learning for me. And fundamentally, that's what I'm doing. I'm learning. I like to say, I understand a lot about it here, but who is an expert after only, 3 years in the space? I have a lot to learn, and I'm excited to continue building the community here and the ecosystem here. And hopefully bring more governments in and more businesses in, more MNCs into play, and really support our startups to make change.
Truly inspiring. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thanks, Natalie, for having me. Speak soon.